There's been a lot of gnashing of teeth about the college football playoff, about the selection committee, about everything that's involved. But is it really broken?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. We got our guy Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football here to break down everything from the college football playoff to Oklahoma, Alabama. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. If you want to get right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. Again, Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football. He's going to talk Oklahoma, Alabama, part 2. He's going to talk the future of college football playoff situations because apparently it's broken and everybody wants to fix it. So we got to have some discussion on that. But let's start here, Spencer. In your opinion, did they get the bracket right?
No. BYU should have been in over Miami. Now, Miami being in over Notre Dame is correct, but neither one of them, given the structure of this playoff, BYU should have been in over Miami. John, can you tell me between BYU and Miami who has the better overall record?
BYU.
Can you tell me who has the better strength of record?
Based on what I've seen, and I haven't researched this myself, I think BYU.
Can you tell me who has the better strength of schedule?
BYU.
Can you tell me what in the world we're talking about then as to why Miami should be in the playoff over BYU?
Yeah, man, I think for them, it's just tough because of those 2 losses to Texas Tech. I think that's really kind of what it came down to the committee. But at the same time, I get why BYU fans would be upset because you look at Miami's losses and they're not stellar either. The teams that they lost to, they're not teams you're going to talk to your mom and your dad about. Like,
no, they're fine. You know, for a while they got talked about as disastrous losses. Like they're a pair of 8-win teams, so they're not
solid, but they're not like losing to Tech.
Yeah, it's not like they lost to Florida State.
Yeah.
You know, like who could possibly do that? I mean, if you lost to a team like that, you shouldn't make the field, right? So talk about Alabama later. And just for the record, I think Alabama should have been in the playoff. But every time you expand the playoff, John, this is what the conversation is going to be: is we're just going to keep having these debates. And I mean, the number of people that have sounded off on this, and their conclusion is you just need to go to a 16-team playoff. And then you wouldn't have these debates. Like, oh my gosh. We have these debates in a 68-team field in the NCAA tournament. You know why? Because there's always going to be a bubble. There's always going to be one. It's unavoidable. It's just a reality. And guess what? None of these teams have a clear-cut case to make the playoff. And yes, that includes BYU because of the manner in which they lost to Texas Tech. I happen to think, based on all the metrics, that they have the best case of the teams that got in. So no, the committee did not get that part right. I am glad that Miami was finally put ahead of Notre Dame. It shouldn't have taken this long. The process to get here was just ridiculous, completely nonsensical. The outcome, however, in that particular example was correct. But I have to say, I'm pretty appalled by the lack of discussion about BYU compared to Miami and Notre Dame from a lot of other national talking heads in college football that have just overlooked, like, no, BYU just definitely doesn't deserve to be there. Like, no, if you look at their I don't care what the hypothetical point spread would be. The results on the field have to matter. And if BYU played a tougher schedule and has a better record, then what are we talking about? What are we talking about here? And by the way, since a lot of folks love to bring up, well, quality loss is this and quality loss is that, BYU's loss to Texas Tech, either one of the losses to Texas Tech, I thought we weren't punishing for conference championship games, but as Kirk Herbstreit showed us, no one should be punished unless you're BYU, in which case, boy, that was really bad. So if we're going to operate in that world, which we should, and that's how I treated my own rankings following conference championship weekend, where it's only a positive incentive rather than anything bad that can actually happen. Yeah, BYU should be in, and BYU's got a legitimate beef because I'm looking at the metrics and going, I do not understand. Like Stanford Steve and Scott Van Pelt the other day brought up at one point as I just kind of realized this. Oh, hey, wait, BYU's schedule is better than Miami. That's what we've been saying, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, BYU, I feel like, has a legitimate gripe about all of this because it feels more like politics.
Yes.
Hey, we got to keep the ACC in it somehow. you can't have a Power Four conference not represented in the college football playoff. That to me is where it seems like the narrative really shifted in all of this to really get Miami in so that the ACC had some representation. Had Virginia won their conference, maybe that's not even an issue, but because they didn't, it was potentially going to leave the ACC out. And so, hey, we got to figure out a way to get Miami in. To your point a little bit earlier about why it took so long to have Miami rated above Notre Dame, that's the biggest issue there. But I think BYU not getting enough respect generally because I think it's a name thing still with BYU. You know, they're not.
Yeah, I agree.
They're not a traditional power. They haven't always been in the Power Four. It's not to use this phrase. It's kind of new money discussion versus old money. But BYU is a brand, I think if we really break it down, is a national brand. They've got a big following, a big fan base, a powerful fan base. And it's going to take some time, I think, for the college football community to recognize that, but it's a reality. And they did get a little bit screwed in the whole process, not just this week where they had the college football playoff rankings come out, but I think along the way, they weren't getting as much respect for their record as the rest of the country.
That is correct. And I mean, I have felt several times watching this get discussed, debated, and analyzed on TV and podcasts all over the place, just the lack of inclusion about BYU in the discussion. I mean, John, the number of times that I've tuned into ESPN over the last several weeks, months, whatever, mostly in the last several weeks, and I've seen these resume comparisons for teams that were on the bubble. And they showed 9th-ranked Alabama and 10th-ranked Notre Dame. And then we just ignore the 11th team. And then we go straight to number 12, Miami. I want to rip out what little hair
number 13 Texas or 14 Vanderbilt.
See, but once you get to 13, you're further away from the discussion because you have the automatic berths that were coming from the ACC champ or that situation and the Group of Five champ. But the number of times that they just put the teams on the screen to directly compare the resumes and put the visual out there for everyone to see, and they went 9th team, 10th team, 12th team. Like, are we putting hotel floors together and saying, no, we're not putting the 13th in there? Can't do that. As Tom Segura famously said, well, that's a spooky number. Like, I felt like I was losing my mind because I could not comprehend. And look, I'm usually very anti-tinfoil hat conspiracy. I don't know how to talk somebody off the ledge mentally of, yeah, ESPN just really didn't want BYU in the playoff, whether that's because they don't have the television contract with BYU, because there's something else they don't like about BYU, or because they've got PTSD from TCU in the national championship game against Georgia all those years ago, just ignoring the fact that TCU beat Michigan that year.
Yeah.
Who the next season went on to win the national championship. Like, I just cannot, and the whole discussion about blowouts completely overlooks the fact that there have been blowouts all over the college football playoff. Oregon might blow out James Madison. I'm an Oregon guy. I hope they beat the living daylights out of James Madison because I don't want to stress about the outcome of that game. But then that's going to be used, even though here's the crazy thing. I agree, 2 G5 teams getting into the playoff is unfair. That's where Notre Dame's beef should actually be. Wait, why do we have this format where even though Notre Dame didn't play a great schedule, it's still a lot tougher than what James Madison went through by a long shot? That's not even close. That's not even a debate. JMU put one Power 4 team on their schedule. Maybe they tried for more, but they got one Power 4 team on the schedule they lost. So that angle of it is indeed ridiculous. But you're going to see folks come in and say, see, look at these blowouts. The G5 shouldn't be able to get in. I'm going, that's not the reason. That you cannot just look at a blowout and say, Tennessee got blown out last year in the college football playoff. They got smacked. Oregon was the number 1 team down 34-0. Anyone want to debate whether those teams were able to get into the college football playoff? I do not buy it whatsoever. And by the way, Boise was competitive with Penn State, who was one play from the national championship game.
Yeah, to me, it's a format issue, and that's what we're going to discuss next. What needs to be a little bit different, altered, structured differently in the college football playoff? We'll discuss coming up here on Locked On Sooners and Locked On College Football.
The holidays come with two big goals: feeding people well and finding gifts they'll actually love. And when you have both handled in one move, Omaha Steaks is the way to go. From hosting to gifting, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your door. Because during the Sizzle All the Way sale, you can stock up and save on a huge way, $50 off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners can get an extra $35 off with the code COLLEGE at checkout. And so I usually send out some sort of a meal deal to my family because I like to send them out some steaks and some good meats to enjoy, because what better way to celebrate the holidays than to have experience of good food? The steaks are perfectly aged and instantly tender. It's restaurant level at the house, and there's so many options. They'll toss in fillets, burgers, comfort foods, sides, desserts. You can build a box for just about anyone. So save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way week sale, and for an extra $35, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com, code COLLEGE.
So here was my big take on this, Spencer. It's not that the committee inherently got everything wrong. It's just that people don't like the results from this year's bracket. Expansion, to your point, to me isn't the solve. It's not the fix all, because as you mentioned, we're then going to start debating teams 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, which would have been Vanderbilt, Utah, USC, Arizona, Michigan, Virginia. Those were teams ranked 14 to 19 in this year's college football playoff final rankings. I don't care. I don't care about any of those teams. None of those teams, except for maybe Vanderbilt, really moved the needle for me as like, oh man, they were snubbed. But this is an ever growing issue, and it's evolving, right? The college football playoff is ever evolving. We're going to see changes after this year. What do you expect to see differently, and what would you like to see differently?
Shrink the playoff field down to 8 teams is where I would start for what I would like to see. That's what I would like to see. Now, my priorities for college football as a whole are not the same as everybody else. I come from this crazy, dated, deranged world where I want the results that we watch every week to have real impact on the season. I know it's wild. And you diminish that the more you expand the field. By the way, we have done that by expanding the field to 12. If it were 8, Alabama's not in the college football playoff. Why? Because they lost the SEC championship game, because they lost to Oklahoma, because they lost to Florida State. And yeah, they had a bunch of great wins, but they would not be in the playoff, nor should they have been in the college football playoff. Oklahoma actually would have been the last team in, and that game would have been the differentiating factor. You would have easily left out Miami and Notre Dame, and I don't think anyone would have been able to seriously argue, because Miami has the head-to-head. That's got to matter. But then Miami also lost. So one thing I've heard from some Notre Dame fans before is, well, Miami's losses are terrible. Well, I'm sorry, but indirectly, you lost to those teams. You're sitting here saying, well, see, Miami's not that good. They lost to these teams. You lost to Miami, man. Come on. Like, give me a break with this. So I want those games to have serious impact. I want 2 lost teams to have to look like Oklahoma to get into the college football playoff, because that's where my priority comes from. Is the greatest sports product outside of March Madness is college football's regular season. That's always been the thing, that when you watch a game and you're hanging on the edge of your seat to know what the outcome will be at the end, that's where it's always had the most impact. I remember back in the BCS days, John, when Alabama was in the midst of its dynasty with Saban. Man, I'm an Oregon guy. Alabama losing a game was a national event. I mean, it was a huge deal. And obviously they're not the same with Kalen DeBoer as they were under Saban at this point in time. But the margin for error has increased. Now, I will concede it's not as bad as I thought it would be with 12 teams. It's still worse than I would like it to be. I would prefer a world in which 2 lost teams really struggle. Right now, they kind of struggle. when you're talking about the Power Four conferences to get into the college football playoff. And there are plenty that got left out. A lot of 10-2 teams not making the college football playoff. That's overall good. We could have a world where 0 10-2 teams get into the college football playoff. And then the other message that's being sent, and then I'll get to what I think will end up happening here. I think you're going to see plenty of folks, and I've already seen it in some areas. Joel Klatt's talked about this a little, and Herb Street and others. They're going to say, well, look at what you're doing to the incentive to schedule quality non-conference games. And I don't think the incentive structure for that has actually changed. Yes, there is a downside, but there's also serious upside because the committee just showed you that win over Notre Dame is the differentiating factor. You mentioned Vanderbilt earlier, right? So Vanderbilt at 10-2 is just getting no snub discussion. Clark Lee's handling it like an adult as opposed to Notre Dame that's acting like a petulant child. Right. Because they've been left out of the playoff. And Clark Lee said, no, we didn't handle our business. We had chances to win those games, and we didn't. And I said, man, Clark Lee for college football commissioner, because holy smokes, that's outstanding stuff. But why is Vanderbilt not getting the same level of snub talk or perceived disrespect, even though their resume is pretty darn good? Do you know what it comes down to between Vanderbilt, who plays in a better conference in the SEC than Miami in the ACC? Miami's got to win over Notre Dame, who we're talking about as a potential playoff team. Who is Vanderbilt's best non-conference win? South Carolina, who stinks. That's what it's coming down to. It has to matter at some level that you don't. Think about BYU. Goes 11-2, only loses to the number 4 team in the country. Yes, they get handled twice. What would the discussion be about BYU if they had a non-conference win? Then instead of being a Power 4 non-conference win, instead of it being against Stanford, what if they had played, I don't know, Vanderbilt, for example, or somebody that gives them another legitimate top 15 win in addition to having beaten Utah in the regular season? I think that would change. So, yes, I get the Ohio State and Texas discussion. Oh, if they had not scheduled this, if Texas had put a cupcake in there and finished at 10-2, I don't think there's a guarantee at all.
None.
That they would have been in the college football playoff. I think they might have been closer, sure, but everyone acts like it's a lock. And they absolutely would. No, they wouldn't have, because they still have the loss to Florida. And at 10-2, Miami's losses much better than that. And the SEC loves its quality losses. So, end of rant. I think they'll use this as justification to expand the field to 16 teams. And I think that sucks. But, that's the world we have.
I don't want to see it go to 16. I was kind of an advocate for 12. I feel like 12 is just right if we're going to have this many teams. 16, the conversation's around 24.
Oh gosh.
It's just too much. And the schedule doesn't line up well with the calendar as it is. Like, we're playing the national championship game after school starts. And to me, it doesn't fit what college football is. So expanding it out further doesn't clean that up. It makes things more complicated. We have the Lane Kiffin saga. We've got the transfer portal. We got the early signing period. We got the college football playoff. We got all this stuff trying to happen within, December to end of January. And it's just too much. You've got to get the schedule lined up to where it makes a lot more sense. Expanding the playoff doesn't make sense to me. To your point about the non-conference scheduling, I think non-conference scheduling and scheduling tough opponents, it's a risk reward situation. Had Texas beat Ohio State, there'd be zero discussion about whether or not they were in the playoff. Had they beat Florida, there'd be zero discussion about whether or not they were in the playoff. Oklahoma gets the benefit of having scheduled Michigan and beating Michigan. Correct. If they lose that game, they're not in the college football playoff. They won it, they're in. So you take a risk, you also reap a reward. And you talked about Clark Lee. That was Brent Venables' stance on it when somebody asked him if Oklahoma had done enough to host a playoff game. He said, hey, listen, we've done what we could. It's in the committee's hands. We had opportunities to improve our resume against Ole Miss and against Texas. We didn't take advantage of those opportunities. Kind of the same kind of stance. And I appreciate that from the coaches because it's about the results. The results on the field have to matter. If you're relying on the committee to, quote unquote, get it right for you, then you've already lost. If you need all of that help, then you've already lost the discussion.
Can I make a game comparison that I've thought about with this?
Yeah.
I'm sure we can all agree college football officiating is really bad.
Not great.
It is not unique to one conference. It's not unique to one level of football. I've seen it all over the place. Really, really bad. Mm-hmm. If you are allowing a game to be decided, this applies to Notre Dame because they'll point out the holding call. Yep, they missed a hold. That is clearly a hold. They did not throw the flag. If you are allowing the game to be at the point where it could be decided by the official, I see that as the same thing as you're allowing the game to be decided, or you're allowing your season to be decided by the committee.
Yep.
You haven't done everything that you can control to make sure that that doesn't matter, that a bad call isn't ending your season. I guarantee if you talk to Oregon fans, or just me, frankly, we'd all tell you the Oregon-Iowa game was horrifically officiated in a number of areas. Iowa got points because they did not make certain calls. Oregon found a way to win the game anyway. And if you are allowing it to come down to that margin, my sympathy for you goes out the door. You have to take care of everything that you can control before I will say, okay, you got screwed with this. And I'm sorry, Notre Dame, you didn't do that. Your defense didn't start playing well till the second half of the season. That's on you. And the discussion about, well, it was week one. It was every single game has to matter. Mm-hmm. And a week one, this narrative over the last several years that, well, they've gotten hot. Well, they've done that. Doesn't matter. You have to treat every game, every outcome as the same, or else you will start to see teams think about and perhaps pulling the trigger on, yeah, we're just going to cancel these quality non-conference games because, well, doing it early in the season has this sort of impact and late. I don't want any of that. It's why I've said for a long time, schools should not control their own non-conference schedules. They don't control their own conference schedules, by the way. But for the non-conference, as a sport, we say, yeah, do whatever the heck you want. Yeah, you can be Indiana or Penn State or Washington in the Big Ten and just have no quality opponents out there. And I love that the SEC is going to 9 conference games, and I love that the ACC is going to 9 conference games, and they'll get rid of the end-of-season cupcake, and that they're all required to play a Power 4 non-conference opponent. That's what everybody should have. The Big Ten absolutely needs to adopt that. So I just get really irritated when something is left on the margin and then a team or a fan base complains about this, that, and the other thing. It's like, I know that player was held in the Notre Dame Texas A&M game. You gave up over 40 points at home. It's not the number one reason why you lost. It's a reason. It's not the number one reason. Until you take care of everything that you can control, my sympathy for you gets pretty low.
Yeah, every fan base is going to have a gripe about officiating in basically every game. I have them from the Texas game. I've got them dating back to 2021 or 2023 in the Oklahoma State game. There are bad officiated games. To me, it's because there's too many sports and not enough officials at this point. There's just a dire need
I think
for
it's
people
just
to step into officiating.
Yeah, I think they're clearly are not enough. I also think it's clearly just too difficult of a job because I've met plenty of officials over the years, and I can assure you they want to get it right.
Right.
They are not out there they're not getting paid buku bucks to do some of these games, like compared to what, emotionally they have to go through as an official sometimes. They want to get it right. They do. They're sports fans. They want to make the game a better place. I'm just looking at it going, yeah, they can't. It's like MLB umpires. I'm sure they want to call strikes correctly. They're not capable of doing it.
I also blame high definition cameras because now we see everything. Whereas 20 years ago, we didn't see all the holding calls that happened on the offensive line or the, defensive pass interferences that went uncalled. Like we just watched the game for the game. Like we didn't over analyze and over highlight all of these calls or missed calls on a weekly basis.
That's true, but even before HD cameras, we all saw the Oregon onside kick against Oklahoma in 2005.
Shut up, Spencer. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup even more realistic instead of impossible. So pick a game, tap a section, and you have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. And the seat view is a game changer. You literally see what the pitch looks like from your exact seat before you buy. And with games happening in venues across North America, that's a huge feature because you aren't going to know exactly what your stadium is going to be like until you get there. So you got to use Game Time to check that out. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go Game Time. Go Game Time. All right. Fine.
That was too perfect.
But hey,
I'm sorry.
Bob Soup's got it back, though. Bob Soup's got it back.
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
It's the worst call. Funny thing about that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Yeah. I don't think that was a Pac-10 crew. Nope. It was
no conspiracy.
Non-conference game. It was just gross incompetence out there, and every Oregon fan was looking at it going like, what do you mean it's our ball? Like, dude, it is? Oh,
could you imagine what social media would have been like back then? It might have shut down the internet. That's
I don't know. The internet seems to be able to handle a lot.
It does. The servers have grown quite a bit over the last 20 years.
Yes.
All right. So Oklahoma gets to play Alabama, this time in Norman, for the first round game of the college football playoff. It was a 2-point win for the Sooners. A lot of people talked about it being lucky or fluky, blah, blah, blah. What do you make of this matchup for Oklahoma against Alabama?
I was as quick to pick this matchup as I was to pick Tulane and Ole Miss. I think Oklahoma is going to win this football game because they are the better football team than Alabama. And I don't just say that because they beat them the first time. And I know how hard it is to beat a team twice in a season. But when you beat them the first time at their place and now you get to come and be at home when Alabama had to play more recently than you did and get beat up against Georgia in the SEC championship game, and I know that Oklahoma defense is really good. I've been high in it all season long, and I do not have any faith in the Alabama offense. What would you even say Alabama does well at the moment? Because obviously they can't run the ball. We've known that all season. But I watched them against Georgia, and it's not just that they couldn't throw it either. It's that they couldn't do the easy stuff. I mean, they're trying to throw the ball on a wheel route or a flat route. They can't complete a pass. I mean, it looks completely inept. They look like a team that has just been through a bunch and that they just do not look like they are operating at all at a level that gives me any sort of confidence that they can go in and put up 20 or more points against the Oklahoma defense. I don't see how you reach that conclusion. It'd be a heck of a coaching job by Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb if they do, because I just watched them against the defense the caliber of Oklahoma's, and they had -3 rushing yards and 7 points. And they just did so many things wrong. They didn't look great against Auburn either. I don't know where your confidence in the Alabama offense would come from. And quietly, the Alabama defense has started playing well. So that's my biggest concern for Oklahoma in this game. Will John Mateer in the offense be able to find any sort of I don't know if that's going to happen either. I think this could be an old Big Ten West score, John, like 14-12. Mm-hmm. I legitimately, that might be my final score prediction. I might say 13-12 just for fun. So I don't think Oklahoma should be underdogs at home. I think that's an overreaction to Alabama's brand there, and I think Oklahoma is going to win the football game.
Yeah, I think some of it comes back to Oklahoma's offense just not being able to find enough consistency really since the Michigan and Auburn games. I mean, it's just been really up and down. They've been explosive. They've found enough explosive plays offensively to go win football games, and really that's all that matters. it's going to be a slugfest. And where Oklahoma struggles maybe the most is in the passing game, and Alabama's great against the pass. And I think that will be what determines their offensive success. If they can find enough in the passing game, because John Mateer is going to have to make some throws for you to get a win. Oklahoma's offense is a little bit dinged up. Their running backs haven't been healthy. Can they run the ball consistently? But man, I'm with you. The defense is just playing so well. And what they were able to have success against Oklahoma's defense with was a lot of the, hey, we're looking at the sideline and snapping the ball while nobody's paying attention kind of they took advantage of some of Oklahoma's attempts to make some last second adjustments. I don't think that they're going to be able to find that kind of same success the second time around.
Yeah. And again, I just keep coming back to what I've seen from the Alabama offense in the last month. It's been bad.
Yeah.
Ryan Williams has disappeared. Ty Simpson, when he gets under pressure, is worse than most quarterbacks, and most of them are not very good unless you're Jordan Love with the Packers, who I think had a PFF grade of like 99 against the Blitz on Sunday in their win over the Bears. And I think that what Oklahoma is able to do defensively matches up really well against what Alabama struggles with, and that's protecting the quarterback.
Yeah.
Like Caden Proctor's an NFL offensive lineman. Man, the rest of that Bama offensive line's not playing very well. And I know the Oklahoma front is nasty, and I know that Brent Venables is going to bring a variety of blitz packages to confuse him, and that's what's thrown them out of the rhythm all season long. It's what threw them out of the rhythm in Tuscaloosa earlier this year. So, yeah, I think Oklahoma is the more trustworthy team, because if I'm looking at two teams that are playing better on the defensive side of the ball, which they certainly are, which defense do I trust more? It's Oklahoma. And yeah, Alabama's defense has improved. I don't think Alabama's defense is one of the 10 best in all of college football. Oklahoma's is. So, yeah, defense wins championships. As they say, Oklahoma is at home, more rested. I think the Sooners are going to win the football game. I don't know if either team's getting to 20. Both offenses are a rough watch. Like, they're a really ugly, rough, bad watch. And honestly, I'm kind of excited to see it. You know, points being at a premium. Hey, yeah. I'm here for it. But yeah, something like 17-12. You know, just something ugly. I think is where this game winds up going.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a big opportunity for both defenses to just slow this thing down and make it a slugfest. And because both offenses really haven't found a lot of consistency over the last month, then yeah, it seems like it's going to be a old school college football game where it's a slugfest and special teams is going to matter significantly. And Oklahoma's got a really good special teams. As you look at the playoff bracket, we'll get you out of here on this. Who's your favorite to kind of win it all?
As crazy as it sounds, Ohio State.
Okay.
Last year, they got spurred on by a loss. Now, it was to Michigan, so that hits different than Indiana. I think the Hoosiers were just incredibly fired up to play that game, and not that Ohio State was unmotivated, but I think Indiana wanted that game more. Ohio State knows what the real mission is. That's to go win another national championship, and Indiana is very impressive. Mm-hmm. Very, very impressed. Like,
I was impressed.
Now, I think those two teams more than likely meet in the national championship game. Like, Georgia could get in there as well. I still wonder about Georgia a little, even though they've looked more like themselves and they've been a more complete football team on offense, defense, special teams. That's what they were when they won back-to-back national championships. I'm bullish on Gunnar Stockton. Been a big fan of his since he came in for Carson Beck last year. I was somebody that after that game said, yeah, Notre Dame just beat Georgia, and having Carson Beck wouldn't have mattered because Gunnar Stockton was just fine. Mm-hmm. Gunnar Stockton looked pretty good, and Gunnar Stockton is playing his best football. So I think Georgia's obviously got a chance. I don't think you can rule out Texas Tech, but honestly, I'd take Ohio State. Going into the bracket right now, I would take Ohio State to win the national championship again. Yeah,
if Oklahoma is able to get past Alabama and then has to face Indiana in the Rose Bowl, like, to me, that's a fun matchup because, one, I don't know if Oklahoma's ever played Indiana. I've never looked it up, but I like their front. Their defensive front is active. They're physical. They look a lot like Oklahoma's defensive front. And again, it could be just another smash mouth football game.
Be a lot of red.
Yeah, and there'd be a lot of red. And
There'd be a lot of
two
red.
transfer portal quarterbacks going and trying to find some success.
Probably
in
the
college
two
football playoff.
best transfer portal quarterbacks that move. You'd have to toss Carson back into that fold as well. But like, I think Beck has been better than Mateer. I don't think either one's been as good as Mendoza, obviously, who's probably going to win the Heisman Trophy. But yeah, and just as a quick side note for all the Sooners fans out there listening to or watching this show, the transfer portal window for quarterbacks, I think, is going to be a lot deeper and crazier than it was a year ago. Sam Levitt from Arizona State is the first of many dominoes that I think will fall.
We're not worried about that. John Mateer's coming back. They're going to roll with John Mateer. I mean, there are some Sooner fans that think they need to look at a different signal caller. I think you just need to ride with it. It's not been great, but it's been good enough. And if he can keep playing complimentary football,
is good enough the standard?
Defense, no, it's not the standard. It's not the standard, not at all. But he's been a part of what's helped you get to 10 wins.
True.
He's a leader on that team. There's vibes. You got to ride with vibes sometimes as opposed to stats. And football is not one on paper. It's one sometimes with heart and emotion and leadership. And as bad as he has been at times this year, he has still been an important part of what's helped Oklahoma have success.
Second year in the system, continuity. I can see it.
Give me continuity, because if we change up again, we'll go from Dylan Gabriel to the Jackson Arnold, Michael Hawkins experience to John Mateer. And then if we get another quarterback,
Jackson Arnold's in the portal.
That'll be 4 quarterbacks in 4 years with 3 different offensive coordinator situations. Like, let's have some continuity. I'm all for that.
I see that argument.
All right, go check out Locked On.
Roll the dice on Jackson Arnold again.
Listen, we're not going to do that here. All of our Locked On Sooners everydayers know how I feel about Jackson Arnold. The dude's got all the talent in the world. I just think my guy needs to spend some time with a sports psychologist and just find his mojo again.
He needs to learn from Dante Moore, and he needs to go find a veteran quarterback and a stable offense to sit in for a year and learn from. That's what he needs to do.
He needs to go spend an offseason just playing a bunch of 7-on-7 where he just throws the ball a ton. Like, drop back, sling it, and not worry about anything else, because he just in his head too much, just holding the ball too much. But that's my aside. He's got all the tools in the world to be really, really good.
Yes, he does.
Got to throw the ball. Anyway, go check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin every day, covering all the biggest stories in the college football landscape and getting you ready for the college football playoff. Check out Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcast. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. But until next time, he's Spencer. I'm John. We'll talk to you then. Boomer Sooners.